Hey everybody, Tekking101 here, and I just got back from seeing The Winter Soldier Captain America 2 opening night in theaters. Super stoked about that. Like, you guys don't even know, like, how many times have I, ever since Iron Man, I've made it my personal mission to try and see these movies on opening night when they first come out, and this is the first time I've been able to do that. The ninth one in, I think I finally was able to do that. Hey, at least it's better, because this is like the fourth movie of the fourth one of these movies I've actually been able to see in theaters at all. Like, I wanted to move heaven and earth to see the Dark World in theaters. That's kind of ironic considering the plot of that movie. But I've wanted to see that in theaters, and that fell through in the worst way possible, and I didn't get to see the Dark World until like a month ago on DVD. But I'm like super stoked about this because the main problem was that the theater I usually go to, it doesn't offer pre-order tickets. Like, you can't go through Fandango, you can't go on their website and pre-order tickets. So you have to show up at the theater like an hour or two, or in this case like 2 hours before the movie, because this place was freaking packed with comic book geeks and everything. And it's one of those things where I never had a chance to, it's like you show up 2 or 3 hours earlier, you don't show up at all. With this case though, they actually changed their policy so you can pre-order tickets. So I'm like, oh dude, yes, and I pre-ordered them like 2 days in advance, and I went to go see the movie in 3D, which 3D elements honestly kind of lacking in this one, but I'll get into that. Before we get into it, I should throw up a spoiler warning here for those of you who have not seen it yet, considering it's ninth movie in the freaking franchise. But I'm going to be basically just going through like chronological order in the movie and just giving you my thoughts on each one of those. But before we get into any of that, there's something I need to address right now, and that is the freaking Falcons in this, dude. Yes, like I was not calling that. That was like amazing in terms of like the reveal of that character, and not just for me. I mean, I understand that I don't read comics. I don't read the comics. So anybody who does read the comics, I'm sure the second this character introduced himself, like I'm Sam Wilson, everyone's gonna be like, oh hey, it's the freaking Falcons in this. I don't know that. But, I don't read the comics, so I had no idea. It completely went over my head. And when the reveal was finally shown, I'm like, oh, wow, okay, we're doing that. And not only me, too. Because there was a bunch of other people in the theater that as soon as he, rockets up from behind the building wearing that freaking awesome jetpack thing, everyone's just like, Falcon! I'm like, oh, okay, awesome, we're doing this. That's cool. But anyway, so chronologically ordered. Basically, this movie can pretty much just be called S.H.I.E.L.D. the movie, featuring Captain America and sometimes the Winter Soldier, because that's basically what this is. We get a really great insight, no pun intended, insight on the way that S.H.I.E.L.D. operates, how it works inside the government, like to see their basis of operations, which is in D.C., but they filmed in Cleveland, so whatever, just go to Cleveland if you want to see the base of S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters. Hey, it's the one place no one would think to look. But yeah, so it's really more about that, and it's about, Nick Fury and Scarlett Johansson's characters and all the other members of the S.H.I.E.L.D. team, and like the deep dark secrets they have within. But firstly, we figure out that S.H.I.E.L.D.'s been pretty busy ever since the Avengers for the past 2 years. We didn't really get much of them in terms of the Dark World or Iron Man 3, and we find out what's been going on with them. We actually find out that they have been reacting to the whole omnipresence threat, because even though the Tesseract is no longer in their possession, that was the whole concept of the Tesseract, what the S.H.I.E.L.D. was going to do with it. They were going to take this weapon from another, basically, not another reality, but another planet that has different, laws of physics and like an unlimited energy source, and convert that into weapons to fight those foreign threats from other planets and other dimensions. And even though they don't have the Tesseract anymore, they're still aware of the threat. There's other planets out there that could invade our world and want to kill us, right? So they're like, we need to figure out some way to counteract this. So they built like the biggest, like BFGs known to mankind. They have these 3 new helicarriers that are like the upgrade, like the second generation versions of the helicarriers in the Avengers. And they're like, these ones are like completely, they're designed to be completely automated. They can nuke like 1,000 targets per second. All these freaking guns attached to them. They could basically wipe out an entire country within just a matter of minutes, because they can kill like 1 million people combined, like in a split second or some such. And I'm watching this, and it's a really cool scene where we pan throughout this entire huge warehouse where they're constructing these things, and on top of the helicarriers, we also have these really advanced like stealth fighters, and they're all like on top of this, like these massive warships. And I'm thinking, wow, this is really cool. Wonder how long it's going to take for these things to come back and bite them right in the ass. And that's, hey, look, these things come back and bite them right in the ass. And Captain America and Scarlett Johansson, Black Widow, they go on. I'm sorry, I'm going to be referring to Scarlett Johansson. That's like one of the main reasons I wanted to see. I was like dead set on seeing this movie. Because you know she is like my celebrity crush for so long, and I'm sorry, we all have different things we're into. Mine just happens to be Scarlett Johansson wearing a skin tight jumpsuit, jumping around, doing very sexually explicit gymnastics, you know, and crushing people's heads between her legs. You know that dude. She does that in, like, every movie. She does that at one scene, like in Iron Man 2 and the Avengers, and even in this one very briefly, and it was the Winter Soldier in this one, where she takes, you know, a guy between her legs, and she either, like, you know, knocks them back or snaps their neck, and I'm like, dude, best death ever. Like, no, like, hands down. If I ever end up on death row at some point in my life, that's the way I'm going to choose to be punked out, because, dude. Anyway, going on with the movie, Black Widow and Captain America, they kind of, you know, storm this ship in order to retrieve this, you know, the flash drive or whatever. It's a very stereotypical action movie plot. We have to get back the flash drive! You know, it has information on stuff that we need to know about on Sergeant MacGuffin. But yeah, so anyway, they storm this ship, and it's apparently going to, like, launch a satellite into space, and we just, it's like the first scene in the movie, so we just kind of, like, write it off as just kind of like, oh, this is just going to be like, you know, just see Captain America in action. You know, he's been defrosted for about 2 years now. He's much more accustomed to life. I mean, he's still, you know, he's still kind of getting used to it, but, you know, he's had time to kind of soak up the culture. He's been reading the internet. I mean, you got to figure, like, if you just get transplanted, like, if I were to instantly get transplanted from America to, like, the middle of Russia, or a place I had no idea, you know, anything about the culture whatsoever, give me 2 years there, I at least have a basic understanding. So it's more confusing for him, obviously, being thrown to, like, 70 years of time, but he's still, you know, he's still up to date on things. There was one scene where Scarlett Johansson makes a War Games reference. He's like, shall we play a game? And she's just like, oh, it's from a movie that you probably don't like. He's like, no. Chris Evans is like, no, I've seen it, yeah. He's like, so I'm like, okay, that was pretty cool. So, they raid this cargo ship or whatever. They have the hostages, and you know, they make like very short work of that. It was like the most carefully planned, like perfect tack team raid ever since, like, we took down Osama bin Laden. You know, it's just like perfect takeout of every single terrorist. Not a single hostage was killed. That kind of thing going on there. Also, we had some pretty cool pan out shots too of this ship. You know, the fight scenes in this one are kind of well, they're all close combat. They're all, you know, like with you know, hand-to-hand combat, obviously, because that's how Captain America does it. And that's not really what we get to see in a lot of the other Marvel movies, because, you know, Iron Man has his repulsors, and Thor has the hammer, has Mjolnir. So this is the first one we actually get to see, like, hand-to-hand combat, like, actually, like, ninja shit going on here. And it's done quite well. They really do a great way with the wire work of actually, you know, interpreting, like, getting punched by Captain America is like being hit by a freaking car or, like, a truck or something. Because you get hit, you fly back, and it's like every single person. And they do a great way to convey that. They did a great pan-out shot of, like, the entire boat where we just see Captain America running in a straight line, just basically knocking people out, throwing his shield, you know, just, like, constantly, like, in a straight line. That was pretty good. From, like, a third-person perspective, that was pretty cool. Anyway, it comes to a head, though, when it turns out that, you know, Black Widow got, like, a different mission. Like, her objective was to go secure the flash drive, and Captain America was just supposed to, like, do mop-up duty, and he's just like, why are you doing this? You put this mission in jeopardy. And she's just like, well, I have my own mission. And so he barges into Nick Fury's office, and he's just like, what's all this crap? You keeping secrets from me. I'm like, okay, listen, like, Steve, dude, You're asking the leader of a secret, you know, Black Ops organization, essentially, to always be truthful with you. Just to, like, the bro code. I'm like, dude, it's not going to work that way. That's the whole point. That was, like, one of the main underlying, you know, plots of the Avengers, was that you cannot trust S.H.I.E.L.D. You can't trust Nick Fury. He's going to keep shit from you because he's the head of a massive Black Ops organization. That's the whole point of keeping secrets, you know? And this one wasn't even that big of a one. You know, he didn't keep him up to date on what all of Scarlett Johansson, what Black Widow's mission objectives were. You know, those are her mission objectives. You just do what you got to do, man. I have to give them one thing. They finally gave Nick Fury a freaking fight scene, like a legitimate fight scene that goes on for several minutes. I mean, 9th freaking movie in the series, guys. Marvel, you had Samuel L. Jackson locked into these. You know, the guy has appeared in like 4 of these movies, and the most action he ever got to see was that one scene in the Avengers where he takes out his freaking 9mm and he shoots a couple people with it. Or, you know, at the end of the movie where he takes out the rocket launcher and he shoots the freaking plane, but it was the wrong plane anyway, so it didn't matter at all. I mean, Samuel fucking Jackson! assassin, guys. Come on, this isn't hard to do. You know, give him a gun, throw him out there in a high combat situation. He'll waste a couple guys. All right, that's all you needed. Well, in this one, we kind of get like a fight scene with him and his amazingly sentient vehicle, which I love this thing. And that's kind of like a running theme throughout the entire movie, is that everything in S.H.I.E.L.D., literally everything, from probably like how you flush the toilet, turning on the air conditioning, going downstairs in an elevator, you know, like opening up Microsoft Paint, all done through voice command, all done through perfectly acclimated and, you know, like voice recognition software that's able to determine your voice, determine your facial structure, and it's constant, like all throughout the building, all in every single one of the all in one of the vehicles. You know, and I guess it makes sense considering this is the area. It's basically like Tony Stark's office, you know, Tony Stark and Jarvis, except Jarvis is adapted, you know, to this massive organization. So that's basically what it is. And, you know, he's driving this car, of course, and apparently all the freaking members of the DC Metropolitan Police decided to attack this guy at once. I guess they got their orders from... and it turns out later on in the movie, but, you know, you've all seen it, obviously, is that S.H.I.E.L.D. is, of course, compromised through Hydra. And I did not call that either, Hydra coming back. I thought it was just going to be like a throwaway thing for Captain America, but Hydra's back, and they've kind of infiltrated S.H.I.E.L.D. as kind of like a neo-Nazi group, essentially. That's basically the best way to describe exactly what they are. And I guess they ordered all the DC police officers to attack Nick Fury and kill him. I don't exactly know how the S.H.I.E.L.D. marching orders went down, if, you know, they just went on the freaking radio and just like, attention all units, please go attack this one SUV and kill this one man inside. Bring every single weapon at your disposal to make this happen. Please discard all other operations until this mission has been fulfilled. You know, I don't know. Like, there's a certain point where if these are regular police officers, you're going to be like, oh, okay, we're going to do that. And there's the other guy that's going to be like, yeah, I have a 2-year-old daughter at home, so I kind of don't want to die today in this massive incursion, so I'm just going to, here's my letter of resignation, bye. But yeah, so he has like 12 cop cars being chased after him, along with S.H.I.E.L.D., right? And this car he's in, like I said, it has like a machine gun in it. It apparently can fly, but it was damaged, so it couldn't fly, but that was pretty cool. It can pretty much do anything under the sun. You know, I was totally expecting this thing to like become like a Transformer, like seriously. Like, it could do everything else. I was expecting, you know, like Nick Fury to get backed into a corner, and he's just like, oh shit, transform protocol, and then like the glove box opens and there's like a big red button and he slams the thing and the car transforms and Nick Fury gets like strapped in like a giant mech and, you know, like some Gundam shit going on here. He's like, I'm Nick Fury! Boom, 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 and he's like stomping through the streets of DC, like turning over freaking cop cars like the freaking Incredible Hulk. But yeah, that was pretty cool. Anyway, this doesn't last for very long. Nick Fury ends up getting captured in a weird... Actually, no, he doesn't get captured right there. He uses his... It was so weird. He gets like flipped over. Like the Winter Soldier shows up. It's like one of the very few times the Winter Soldier is actually in this movie, because honestly, he's really not. I think he shows up in like in the first 20 minutes he's there a lot, but then after that he disappears for like an hour and a half. Anyway, so Nick Fury's car gets flipped over, and like everyone's approaching on him, like the Winter Soldier's getting ready to just like wrap his like armored armor, like his automail around the guy and just choke him to death. And he's getting close to the car. Nick Fury pulls out like I don't know what it is. It looks like a freaking glow, like a flare, except it's silver. And he turns it, and there's this little like fire that ignites. And like it's like, oh, okay, what is this gonna be? Is this like gonna be like a flare, or is this gonna be like a flame sword or some shit? It's freaking S.H.I.E.L.D. It could be anything, right? And Winter Soldier shows over, flips over the freaking SUV, and there's a perfectly square hole in the ground. And it's implied that Nick Fury used this little like flare-shaped thing with this little blue fire like coming out, this little blue flame. He used this to create a several feet deep, like apparently all the way down through the sewers. Like this thing can burn through the freaking asphalt and then like several feet of the ground just like in a second. You know, because there wasn't really a lot of time for him to do this. It's just like, oh shit, Winter Soldier. Okay, we're good. And like a localized, you know, eraser button or whatever, and just like he just falls through this hole. So I'm like, S.H.I.E.L.D. has a lot of incredible things, but I'm like, if it could do that, if it could burn through like probably like upwards of 20, 30 feet of solid ground in like 2 seconds, just point it for the freaking Winter Soldier and kill him. If it had that kind of power. But anyway, he gets away. He goes back to Captain America's apartment, right? He gets in there, and he's just like, you know, Steve, don't trust anybody. And then he passes out. And it turns out like Captain America's neighbor, who apparently, you know, she's really in the rarely in the movie. She's like Agent 13 or some shit, but she's in like 2 scenes. Nick Fury gets taken to the hospital where he apparently dies, and you know, Captain America is a little bit distraught by this, right? Well, he goes into the office of this piece of shit guy. His name's, I think, Pierce. I think he's like the Secretary of Defense or Secretary of the Interior or something. I don't know. And he goes into this guy's office after Nick Fury died, and this guy literally tells him to his face, to Captain America's face, I am going to send some guys to kill you. And I want to say he doesn't literally say that, but he kind of does. Because at the end of the conversation, right before Captain America, he's getting up to leave, and he's just like, I will not stand I will not let anyone stand in my way. Anyone. And like right before he walks out the door, he's like, might as well just stand up and say it again. He's like, hey, anyone. He's like, you ready for this? You ready for this? And then the very next scene, the very next one that happens, Captain America goes into an elevator. Like I said, everything is voice automated, so he walks into this elevator, and, you know, it's very elaborate. We get to see him opening the door and walk in, and the door shuts, and he sits there, and he's like, which floor, please, sir? And he's just like, oh, I want to go to operations or whatever. And, you know, goes down, and then stops at a floor, couple guys get in. Stops at another floor. A couple more guys gets in, and Steve's just like, "Oh, what's going on here?" He's like, "This bead of sweat going down one guy's face." He's like, "What's going on here?" And then he stops again, and even more people get in. So there's like 12 people in this like crammed into this elevator, like shoulder to shoulder, all surrounding Steve. And he finally clicks in his head, like, "Oh, okay, we're going here, okay." And this entire fight scene, it takes place in an elevator that's like completely plate glass. Like this entire, like everything in S.H.I.E.L.D. is made of like plate glass. I don't know. Anyway, he's like everything's okay. This entire thing covered in plate glass. I'm like, I'm waiting for some guy to fucking get scissor kicked right out the window. I'm like, come on, please, let it happen. Let it happen, man. Captain America movie. It's gonna happen. It doesn't happen. So, you know, Captain America obviously takes out all 12 of these guys, you know, insanely easy. You know, I don't know what the idea was. Like, hey, you guys all want to get into close quarters combat with Captain fucking America, the guy that specializes in close quarters combat, the one that, you know, wrecked an entire, you know, like he wiped out a bunch of alien creatures in New York, the guy that single-handedly took down our former, military operations back in the 40s, like a super soldier that could literally, like, we know the potential this guy has. We worked alongside him. We know what he can do, and these guys are willing to fight him. Like, I mean, I understand it's 12-on-1, but it's Captain America. You know, you'd be sending like 50 or 60 dudes against this guy. I'd still be betting on freaking Cap to win. But anyway, Captain takes this guy out. He opens the elevator door, and there's, of course, like a bunch of armed soldiers there. He's like, do not move or we will shoot you. So, yeah, this is what he does. Like, there's nowhere to go, Captain. And, of course, there is a way to go. It's through the freaking plate glass window. So, hey, it did end up getting broken. But here's the thing. I don't read the comics, like I said, and it's probably more elaborated on there exactly how the super soldier serum affected Steve's body. But you have to explain to me, did this sear him? I mean, like obviously outside, you know, it made him really buff. It made it like regenerated, like accelerated healing, that kind of shit. I'm aware of that. But did this serum also give his skin like 5 extra layers of durability, as well as change his bones into the density of titanium alloy? Because there's certain, like, I have to draw the line on a lot of things here, okay? You know, like, he uses the shield to break down a bunch of walls, and he's, like, running through a building, and he's breaking down doors and walls as he's just running through them like he's the Hulk, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool, that's fine. I mean, they're drywall, he's freaking Captain America, he has the shield, he's just breaking through these things. I can understand that. At the beginning of the movie, when they're on the ship, he jumps out of an airplane that's, like, 300 feet in the air, and he lands, you know, in the middle of the water, feet first. I'm like, okay, I mean, that I could buy that. He's in the water, and he has like his new armor on that S.H.I.E.L.D. made for him, so I can understand why he would do that, how he would survive that. But jumping out of a reinforced plate glass window, falling like 10 stories, crashing through yet another plate glass window, and then falling another 3 stories, and then just hitting the ground, hitting the cemented ground. No drag, no nothing to cushion his fall, just his shield. He just, boom, crashes into the ground. Not a scratch on his face from the glass. His arms not even, like, fractured in the slightest. I know there's probably some explanation for that, but unless the serum made him akin to basically the same level of strength as the Hulk, I'm like, at least give him a cut on the face. I mean, his muscles and bones are, like, super durable. at least make a little, like, his skin, like, make it like the Terminator, like, give him a couple cuts on the skin. Like, even the Terminator did that, you know. It's just like, oh, I'm this undefeatable machine, but, you know, I can still bleed sometimes, like, my skin could still get cut, you know. But he just gets back up, and he's just like, that mildly annoyed me, and he just kind of runs away. Whatever, right? Anyway, so what happens after this is this movie basically turns into something I really wanted, and it's basically Captain America teaming up with Black Widow. So we get a lot of Scarlett Johansson here. So I'm like, yeah. So they basically team up and try to discover the deep, dark secrets of S.H.I.E.L.D., and they basically are tracking the flash drive, you know, what it's, you know, where it was made at. They go to this town in New Jersey where Captain America was trained, where Steve was trained back in the first movie, and, you know, it's like a rundown military base. It's like nothing there. Well, they discovered that underneath it, there's like this massive like computer network down there, like where S.H.I.E.L.D., like the original S.H.I.E.L.D. was founded. And there's like this huge warehouse that has nothing but old like computer tape, you know. And so they go up to the thing, and that's when, you know, Scarlett Johansson does like the "Shall we play a game?" So they boot up this computer, and it turns out, follow me on this. It turns out that the guy, I think his name was Zola. It was played by Toby Jones in the first movie. But anyway, his name, Dr. Zola, apparently, when he died in the 70s, that German officer from Hydra in the first movie, apparently in the 70s, he was diagnosed with a terminal illness, and instead of just dying, he decided to convert his entire mind into, like, 200,000 feet of, like, you know, archaic computer tape, right? So he has this entire place that's his mind, and then this, like, computer screen where this really distorted image just shows up, right? And the whole point why he's there is just to explain to Captain America and Black Widow what S.H.I.E.L.D. really is. And spoiler, it turns out that it's actually like a neo-Nazi, neo-Hydra sort of deal, where Hydra still is alive and well, and they're living within S.H.I.E.L.D., and there's members that are inside that are still loyal to the cause that Hydra had. And then immediately after that, though, S.H.I.E.L.D. launches a missile toward the bunker and blows Zola up. You know, and along with they think, you know, Captain America and Black Widow died as well. Of course they didn't, but that's the whole point of his character, was like, oh yeah, I survived. I went through all the trouble of converting myself into computer tape just so I could hang around this empty warehouse for 30 plus years and get really good at playing Pong. I don't freaking know. What was the point of that? Like, I can understand, like, oh, I never wanted to die, you know, so I converted my mind into this. But you ended up dying anyway. He even says in the movie, like, this is the end for us, Captain America. And, you know, he gets freaking nuked. And well, not nuked, but, you know, like ballistic missile. He dies. Like, the entire computer gets wiped out. You know, I mean, like, what was your point? Was that the only reason? Like, back in the 70s, you're like, I know that in 40 years or something, they're going to come here, and I'm going to need to distract them so they can launch a missile. So you better convert my mind into this massive warehouse so I could do that. I don't know. Anyway, so it turns out, like, basically the idea here, what they're going to do, is the flash drive has an algorithm on it. The algorithm is basically determining one's own life worth, like literally putting it into numbers, how much one person's life is worth akin to somebody else's life. And they do this by examining, like, you know, from the time you're born, all the records you've done, all your accomplishments, all the stuff that you know, all the offensive you've committed in your life. And through that algorithm, they're going to plug that into the 3 helicarriers that, of course, Hydra is secretly circumvented S.H.I.E.L.D. so they can, like, launch these things and wipe out, pretty much, like, have this massive global purge of everybody that is unworthy or everyone is unclean. You know, so that's basically their big plot, and that's what Captain America has to, you know, figure out how to stop. So eventually they attack one of the main members of Hydra that's inside of S.H.I.E.L.D., and that's when the Falcon shows up, and, you know, he's kind of part of the team now. So they go on, and they basically skipping over, like, this is where he fights the Winter Soldier. Like I said, the Winter Soldier's not really in this movie very much. Like, I even timed it. Like, at the beginning he shows up, he's all really scary when he's with Captain America right after Nick Fury dies, and you know he catches Captain America's shield, like the scene in the trailer we've all seen, in the scene on the poster, and he's like, whoa, this guy's freaking badass. You don't catch Captain America's shield. That does not happen. And then after that one scene, though, he, like, disappears for an hour. I, like, timed it. Like, that was in the first 15 minutes. He doesn't show up again until, like, an hour and 20 minutes later, where he's in, you know, the obvious main villain's office, you know, Piers, the, you know, secretary of whatever. He's just, like, kind of acting really, you know, broody inside of his house in the shadows. And then 10 minutes later, he shows up to fight against Captain America, and Captain kind of gets the shit kicked out of him for a little bit there, and they manage to get away. And in the process of the fight, though, it's revealed that it's actually Captain America's, Steve's former friend from the first movie, Bucky, the guy that, he fell off the train. But of course he doesn't remember him, so we figured out what that is about. So, but of course, he doesn't remember him because S.H.I.E.L.D.'s been, I guess I should say Hydra has been kind of experimenting on the guy. Like, they froze him, they gave him a new arm because his arm got ripped off in the crash, and they've, basically, like kind of like an anti-Captain America, essentially, and they froze him for 70 years, and that's why he's just as young, and they kind of, like, wiped his mind, and that's how that basically went. So, then they eventually discover this, like, hidden area of S.H.I.E.L.D., like the security bunker. Well, it turns out that Nick Fury's alive. Oh, didn't see that coming. And, they're not going to kill off Samuel L. freaking Jackson. They're not going to do it, man. I'm sorry. I did not buy it. Not buying it. But if they were going to kill him off, it wouldn't be until, like, the very climax of the movie. Okay, that's, like, the only time I could see them killing off. Like, the Avengers 2, if he dies at, like, the climax of Avengers 2, I might be able to buy it. But 20 minutes in the middle of freaking Captain America, the Winter Soldier, I'm like, nah, they're not going to do that. Anyway, so, it was all just a charade, a fake, and it turns out that, who else was there? Maria Hill, yeah, Agent Hill, freaking Kobe Smulders character, she's there. And it's like there's secret underground operations for S.H.I.E.L.D., right? And they discover, okay, so basically here's how it's going to work. We have to take these 3 chips. We have to go into each one of these helicarriers and insert the chip, and that'll redirect the crossfire so it just wrecks the helicarriers, and the helicarriers will then collapse and kill hundreds of civilians in the middle of DC. And no one mentions this, but that's basically what happens. Anyway, so big epic climactic battle. Trying to think if I'm forgetting anything really. I skipped through a couple of scenes. There was the scene where Scarlett Johansson and Chris Evans were in the mall, and they kind of have to act like casual there. There's like a running gag throughout the entire movie where Black Widow is trying to constantly hook up Steve with somebody, like, oh, this my friend from shipping department looks nice, or this is the nurse that lives next to you. She would go nice for a cup of coffee. Obviously trying to get over his former loss of his former girlfriend, Peggy from the first movie. Actually, she's in this. I mean, I just assumed she was dead, right? But like 95 years old. But it turns out she's alive. She's living in like this rest home, and I'm thinking, well, why didn't we reference this at all in the Avengers? Maybe we didn't have a lot of time in the Avengers, but it would have been nice for a throwaway. I mean, even Phil Coleman gave Thor like a throwaway at Kate's character. Yeah, Kate's character from Thor. Like, oh yeah, we sent Kate up to this safe house up there, so she's not pulled in by all this crazy Chitauri shit going on there. And Thor's just like, oh, thank you. So there's like a throwaway there on the other movies, but this one we didn't get anything. Like where Peggy was alive. So turns out she is alive. It's just that she has Alzheimer's. She has like really extremely advanced Alzheimer's, where Steve like turns away for 2 seconds to get her a glass of water, and she completely forgets he was there. And that for a second I think is way worse than if she was dead, because you figure if she was dead, Steve would like go to her tombstone and be like, I'm sorry, Peg, I wish we made it for our date or whatever. But this is like a lot worse. Like he would have been like, oh, sorry, you're dead, game over, that's it. I have to move on and get over it, like any death. But she's still alive, and that's the problem, because she keeps forgetting about him every time she shows up. So every time he walks into the room, she's just like, oh, you came back, and that's like really freaking sad in my opinion. But anyway, so Black Widow is trying to constantly hook him up with something, and anyway, so big climactic battle of the movie. I'm just gonna wrap this up. Is of course Captain America versus the Winter Soldier. The Falcon's zooming around these helicarriers, and he takes out 2 of them quite easily, plugging these chips into it. And of course, it's the last one that the Winter Soldier's on, that happens to be on, and Captain America has to take on. So Falcon ends up getting one of his wings ripped off, so he gets grounded, and Captain has to fight against Winter Soldier. And turns out like it's a very like Empire Strikes Back sort of deal, or it's just like, Luke, I am your father. Like, I am your friend. I'm not gonna hurt you. And there's the scene where it's just like, no, I don't know you. I don't know you. And this is the scene like the entire audience was laughing because Steve like throws down his shield, and he's just like, Bucky, come on, you know me. He's like, no, I don't. And he's like, no, you do. He's like, you're lying. And everyone was like laughing at these like really overacting responses that he was making here, that Sebastian Stan was making against this guy. But anyway, so of course, though, the Winter Soldier gets taken down. Captain America gets shot like a frick. Of course, the bullets don't do anything to hurt him until the end of the movie. Maybe they're like special bullets because the Winter Soldier had them, but maybe it was just like, I don't know. But he gets shot a couple times. And he manages to plug the thing in, and the thing is aborted, of course, and the entire Shield operations is taken back under Nick Fury's control. There's a scene where the secretary gets killed, and it's like, oh, it was like a sting operation with Scarlett Johansson and everything. But I'm like, it wasn't that interesting really. The most interesting part of that whole thing was one of the women from the council from the Avengers movie. Turns out it was Black Widow in disguise using some really high tech like face mask or something, and so. But for a couple seconds there, we get to see like this middle-aged woman like kicking a whole bunch of ass against these armed soldiers, and I'm just like, dude, is every freaking female in S.H.I.E.L.D. like a total badass? Like really? Like there's nobody that like we'll see like is Peggy gonna jump out of like her bed like it's time for bedtime, shunnies, and like pull out a bunch of guns and like go on all red on their ass? Like I don't know. But anyway, they get S.H.I.E.L.D. taken back there. Nick Fury shoots Piers, and he's like, I trusted you, man. He gets shot, and Captain America takes out, Bucky, and they all both fall to the ground in the helicarriers that wipes out like 100+ people probably. Bucky, like, he grabs Captain, and he pulls him to shore, and he's just like, oh, I'll save you, your life for now. And he's very clear he doesn't exactly remember who he is, but he remembers enough to save Captain America's life, so he walks off onto parts unknown. And then the final scene of the movie, we have kind of like, S.H.I.E.L.D. kind of, I don't know if it's like S.H.I.E.L.D. is disbanded because we see like Agent Hill working on the CIA and these other people like working in different sections. Like there's another person that's working in Stark Industries now, so maybe like S.H.I.E.L.D. is officially disbanded and some such. And eventually we have Captain America, Black Widow, Falcon, and Nick Fury all gathering at Nick Fury's opposed tombstone. And this was like a really cool Easter egg I saw. Was on his tombstone, as kind of like his epitaph, was a quotation, and the quotation was, "The path of the righteous man." Ellipses, like that was like the first part of the quote, and I'm just like, oh man, and like nobody caught on to that. Nobody said anything when that was on. It was only on for like a split second, but nobody got that. And of course, it's a reference to Pulp Fiction. It's a reference to Samuel Jackson in Pulp Fiction playing Jules. Is like, the path of the righteous man. And that's the thing he would say before he would unload on a motherfucker. But, no one mentioned that. Although, contrary to that, there was another scene that only lasted for like a couple seconds, although everybody seemed to see, was when the helicarriers were targeting all the different people across the world that they deemed like unclean. One of like that we see like quick scenes all over the country, all over the world, where like we're zooming in on certain cities and like we're getting close-ups on all these people. There's one scene where we have a close-up of New York and we get a close-up of the Avengers Tower or Stark Tower, and as soon as that happened, it was only on scene for like a couple seconds, but everyone's just like, oh, Tony's in this. I'm like, so you get that, but you don't get the Pulp Fiction. What freaking kids. Anyway, so that's basically the end of the movie there. The ending credit scene were not really... the very end of the credit scene was kind of weak. It was just Bucky, turns out he's still alive, and he walks into this big, kind of like the Smithsonian display of Captain America that Steve was in earlier. That's also where Stan Lee made his cameo. And he shows up, and he's like looking at a plaque of who Bucky Barnes was, and Captain America's friend, and he's just kind of in disguise just looking at this. And that was at the very end credits, but like the mid-roll credit scene... I mean, once again, I don't read comics, and I'm sure somebody else could better explain it than you do, but this very obviously evil guy, he's wearing a monocle. Like, you couldn't get more evil than this guy if his name was literally Dr. Evil, essentially. That's who this guy is. He has the slick back hair, he's got the monocle, and he's just like, oh, yes, they don't know what we're doing. S.H.I.E.L.D. and Hydra are merely two halves of the same coin. We have much bigger plans for this planet, and it shows that they have Loki's scepter from the Avengers, which I'm like, yeah, I'm wondering what happened to that thing. What the hell did happen to that thing? Because, Black Widow used it to close the portal, but then after that, we didn't really see it after that. Like, what the hell happened? Did she just drop it on the freaking roof, and then this evil dude just showed by? He's like, oh, cool, dibs. He just grabs it. You think that would be something Thor and it would be like, hey, yeah, Loki's scepter. Can we probably take that back to Asgard too? But, whatever. But yeah, they have the scepter. That's still on Earth, and that's how the mid-roll credit scene ends. Anyway, I have rambled on long enough. I hope you enjoyed the movie as well. This is Tekking101 signing out. Later, guys.